Hi Yogi, it's Bri. In this video, we're going to look at handstand. Handstand's one of my favorite poses, and typically you'll want some hands-on experience with your student, but this will be some great ways to verbally cue students into handstand. In this video, we're going to look at handstand, and there are a number of ways to get into handstand, and there are probably a number of videos out there where you'll find me talking about those number of ways. But in this video, I'm going to really focus on the most common entrance to handstand and how you can use a combination of your verbal cueing as well as your physical spotting to help a student really feel confident as they approach this inversion. So first and foremost, when I work with somebody on handstand, and of course this is going to be a mix in this video between working one-on-one as well as working in a class setting. So first we'll start with, the beginning, that one-on-one. So she's going to come into tabletop position. I use tabletop to work on the hands because the hands are the foundation of the handstand. And if the hands are in the wrong position and the elbows and the shoulders, then handstand can become a little bit dangerous, especially over time. So I want to make sure my student is aware of her hands, that they're shoulders distance. If you have a student who's got tighter shoulders, can't really straighten their arms, then taking the hands a tad bit wider than the shoulders can be really effective. The positioning of the hands, shoulders distance, as well as middle fingers forward, which is traditional, index fingers forward. I prefer that. It gives a lot more space for shoulder engagement. So it's just up to the student as well as you evaluating whether they're tight or not. Then from here, working up the arms, pronation of the forearms or firming the forearms into the midline while they spread the collarbones or the shoulder blades wide. Sorry, the shoulder blades, not the collarbones. Those two actions will set the humerus, the arm bone, in a very supported place. So firming the forearms in helps to engage the pecs, and spreading the shoulder blades wide helps to engage serratus anterior, which is that stabilizer in the shoulder for external rotation. Once she understands that, I want her to also grip the ground with the fingertips, because your fingertips are your brakes when you're handstanding, as well as counter that by pushing down through the index finger knuckle. She's going to come into a downward facing dog from here, keeping this alignment. In her downward facing dog, I'm going to teach her what's going on in the legs to get up to handstand, because so many people lead with their lifted leg. And when you lead the kick up with your lifted leg, it actually throws you into a back bend. Do you mind showing us that? So typically if they start and lead with their lifted leg, notice how the low back starts to bend. Go ahead and relax. Go back to downward facing dog. And that's where, if you lead with your lifted leg, that means you're already in a back bend from the ground up. You end up in a back bend in your handstand. So in the down dog, not only am I teaching verbally what to do with the hands, the arms, and the shoulders, but I'm also going to teach her what to do with her lower leg, her standing leg. And this is called plugging the femur or descending the femur. So she's going to hover her left foot off the ground. Notice what happens when she just hovers. She plugs the thigh bone into the hip socket, and it actually brings the pelvis up and over the lower back. Because in fact, we always talk about the core bringing us up there, and yes, the core definitely helps, but actually the quadratus lumborum muscles in the low back are the muscles that bring the pelvis up and over the shoulders. Rest. Do it on the other side. You'll see that as she plugs the thigh bone, again, the muscles in the low back are working. Now, it's not as pronounced here as it will be when she goes upside down. Go ahead and drop it down. Okay, so now I'm going to ask her to walk her feet forward until her shoulders are over her wrists. So always set up students for handstand prep with their shoulders over their wrists and one leg lifted, whatever leg you want. Making sure that the standing leg is right underneath the hip and not behind it. So you've got the hands, arms, and shoulders aligned. All they need to do is get their hips over their shoulders, not their lifted leg foot. but that could take a year or so, right? So again, reiterating, grip the ground with the fingertips, root down through the index finger knuckles, firm the forearms in, spread the shoulder blades wide. Now I want her to push the ground away so she creates a hollow body, hollow front body. Then she bends her standing leg knee. I'm going to stand in position diagonal to her and reach around just in case. She plugs this thigh bone up. Good, nice. Try that again. So she went all the way up, and verbal communication is really important. Obviously, this plan is about that. So what I want you to do, Verge, is hop as lightly as you can. And when you hop a couple of times, I want you to think about plugging the thigh bone up and trying to kick yourself in the face. So trying to kick herself in the face with that lower leg will bring her hips over without bringing her too high up and in turn engage the core. So go ahead, bend the knee, exhale. There we go. Notice how her hips came over. Do it again. So she's engaging those lower back muscles that'll help support. She's pulling the belly in. Lift up that thigh bone. Good. Nice. Nice. And you can already see the improvement in her lift from that first hop. Good. Switch legs. We'll do it again one more time. And again, this is that handstand hop that we all, for the most part, approach handstand with. You okay? Shake out the wrists. All right. Lift the other leg up. Okay, one more time. She's going to grip the ground with the fingertips. She's going to root down through the index finger knuckles, firm the forearms in, spread the shoulder blades wide. One thing that I haven't talked about yet is the gaze. You okay? So notice how far forward she's gazing. She's probably gazing forward of her index fingers. And what happens with that when you gaze that far forward is it creates an upper back bend. And that's not what we want with handstand. So I'm actually going to ask her to drop her gaze between her thumbs. And when you do that, now it allows for the spine to be a bit longer. Okay? Inhale to the toes, bend the knee, and exhale. Draw that thigh bone up and try to kick yourself in the face. Nice. Really controlled. Do it again. Hop up, squeeze the thighs together. Yes, yes. She needed no help with that one. Good. And shake it out. Come into a fold and do your wrists. Good. Okay, so the hop up, the transition from the ground into handstand is the hardest part. For the most part, when you spot a student, you can bring them up into handstand if you know how to help them find that handstand balance point. Most likely, most people can hold it for a second or two. But that work that each individual has to really do is within the transition, getting from the ground up on their own. And that first step is that plugging the thigh bone is one of those integral pieces to it. And you can do it like I just showed you using verbal cues. Now, I'm going to show you how to spot a handstand, how to verbally cue someone straight up and down. And then I'll show you how I add handstand into a group class setting. Okay? When you're ready, Verge. Set on up. I want to instruct her, grip the ground with the fingertips, root down through the index finger knuckles, firm the forearms in, spread the shoulder blades wide, gaze between the thumbs, draw the ribs and navel in. Good. Come to the ball of the left foot, bend the left knee, and plug the thigh bone, squeeze the thighs to come up. Nice. The legs come up together. Now I can stand to the side. First and foremost, I want her to push down through her hands, draw the ribs and the navel in, squeeze the inner thighs together, but at the same time, squeeze the outer hips in, which is just a fancy way to say squeeze your butt. Good, that's it. Point your toes, flex your toes, whatever works. Use your fingertips as brakes. That's it. Good. You want to feel nice and light. Get taller and longer. She's got it. She's got it. She's got it. Yes. Nice. Awesome job. I always try to work when people are doing handstands in my class one-on-one with someone just briefly. If I see something that I can cue verbally, maybe somebody's working on it, they're almost there, I always walk over and give a little spot adjustment. But in my classes, I also give options to do handstand. It's usually in like a Surya B, towards that end of the Surya B, maybe, from a Warrior 1, get students to come into standing splits. And this is how I typically do it. So just take Warrior 1. And this is completely verbal cueing because I can't adjust or spot everybody. So let's say from a Warrior 1, inhale, exhale, find standing splits. Inhale to a flat back, fingertips underneath the shoulders. Make sure that your standing leg is right underneath that standing leg hip and that your hips are squared. Firm the inner thighs of your legs towards one another and flatten your palms down onto the mat. Make sure you have about a ruler's distance or a tad bit more between your hands and your standing leg foot. Then we come into what I just worked on. Grip the ground with the fingertips, firm the forearms in, spread the shoulder blades wide, gaze between the thumbs, draw the ribs, the navel in, come to the ball of your standing leg foot, bend the knee, and plug the thigh bone. Think about bringing the hips over. Good. And from there, I'll also cue, switch the legs, lower down, chaturanga, or step it back through the vinyasa. Handstand. There are so many different ways, like I said, to come into handstand, but I find that the most accessible is that one-legged kick up, just because the body is lighter, the legs are lighter. So hopefully those are effective ways for you to start really understanding how to verbally cue students into a safe and effective handstand practice.